Hi, I'm Steve Maxwell, and welcome to the next episode of Practical Living, the show that provides inspiration and information on all aspects of hands-on living, from home improvement to woodworking to rural living, gardening, power tools, and everything. In this episode, I'm going to be showing you a wood chipper in action. We're going to see some PVC shears, which also work great for an alternative purpose. We're going to be looking at a portable power station and a bunch of other things. So let's get going. So this is a tractor-mounted wood chipper that I got about 3 years ago now, and it works very well. I thought you might like to see it in action. We've got some old dead stuff to get rid of here. There's often a need for getting rid of trimmed branches and small trees and deadfalls and things like that to keep country places neater. So you're going to see this baby in action. So let's go and take a look. So this chipper is made by a Canadian company called Woodland Mills. They started off making portable sawmills for people. They've added other things to their lineup. It's kind of an interesting story. Two young guys graduating from university, I believe, here in Ontario, Canada, and then they start this company using their design skills. I've had this, as I said, for 3 years. I'm really impressed with the engineering, with the way the blades are pretty easy to get at. I'll show you that. Get at for replacement or sharpening. It's also quite safe too. It's got an automatic feed, the way you saw, but that automatic feed, it's a long way in there. You'd have to try really hard to get caught into it. And this control either shuts off the automatic feed, advances it, or if you push it the other way, it can take stuff out if you've got a jam or something like that. Now, in a minute I'll take off this cover and let you see the blades, see where things actually happen. But it being a tractor-mounted device, it sits on the three-point hitch of the tractor. It connects, it's basically using the power of the tractor in order to power this unit. And the chute is completely adjustable for direction and angle as well. So far, not a stitch of trouble with it. I have changed the belts and I've put on a fresh set of blades, but other than that, it's been a great machine. They do make smaller ones. You wouldn't want to put this chipper on a tractor a whole lot smaller than this one. It's about 60 horsepower, and you use most of those horses when you're chipping up some big stuff. So just one of the tools that we've got here at the end of Bailey Line Road for keeping our place looking good. So just by removing this one bolt, we can get to the blades. Now, of course, you'd never want to take this off while the thing's running. You can be completely safe around equipment like this, but you have to be smart too. So I'll just come around to this side. So this is the thing that spins. It actually spins this way. And there's a blade there. Well, that could use some work. It was sharp a little while ago. I have been doing a lot of chipping lately though. And so there's blades here and here. The material comes in here. And this piece of metal here is also part of the cutting mechanism. It's called the anvil. And that's the thing that supports the wood as the knife is slicing it. So that has to be adjusted. So it's about a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 inch away from the surface of the blade. And there's some adjustment bolts down there. But it's an adjustment you don't need to tinker with too often. But this is essentially where it all happens. And on the back here, there are some flanges that create a kind of air movement, and that's what's responsible for blasting out all the chips and shooting them out. So pretty simple really, but heavy duty, well built, and the kind of thing that serves us well. So this is my Honda four-wheeler. It's a 420cc machine. I've had it for about 3 years now. I really like it a lot just for its engineering, but the real benefit is the fact that I've kind of outfitted it to be a rolling gas-powered four-wheel drive toolbox in a sense, especially when I'm out here looking after fences and making sure the water's working for cattle and setting some dividing poly wire between the different sections of the pasture. So just come on over and I'll take a look. You can take a look at some of the things I've done. This machine didn't come with all the accessories you see here. Colpin makes this back rack super helpful. It's quite deep, so it can hold a lot of stuff. Gas and oil for the chainsaws, some fencing tools, spare batteries for the cordless tools I have on here too, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. One thing down here, I got an extension to this trailer hitch so to get it out kind of even with the back rack. That was very helpful too. I have a couple of trailers I pull with that. And then chainsaw holder, super handy. It's a great way to hold the saw, because you never know when you're going to need a saw around here. A fallen tree or something that needs to be cleaned up. Maybe a little bit of firewood cutting, although I use a bigger saw for real firewood cutting. Moose Utility makes this. This is quite beefy. I kind of wish that back one was as heavy as this. It's heavy enough, but this is really solid. It's the same company that makes the plow blade that I put on the front. As far as stuff I carry, you've seen me using this, just a pruning chainsaw. It's great for those times when you're feeding the chipper, or you're cutting firewood too and you want to just limb some of the branches off the trunk. This is actually a PVC shear. It's meant for cutting PVC conduit, water pipe, PEX, stuff like that. But I'll show you in a minute. It's also a terrific pruning tool. Not for around here so much, but back at the house where you have to do careful pruning. It's quite useful for that. This is Army surplus ammunition box. They make great toolboxes. Not only are they really strong and they don't cost too much, they got a waterproof gasket on them, And this is where I keep all kinds of things like power sharp. This actually lets you sharpen a chainsaw, a dull chainsaw, in about 20 seconds or so. I'll show you about that later sometime. Some bungee cords. I keep some drawings here as well, because I need to know where to put the various fence wires that define the pasture and keep the cattle into smaller sections. So I found that the only way to lay out things accurately as far as size of chunks go is on Google Earth. So each one of these points is where I have installed one strand of electric polywire to form kind of pie-shaped segments. Water is here and water is up there. So the pie-shaped segments all lead to the water. So I don't have to have a whole bunch of water supply everywhere. But I should have got one of these four-wheelers a long time ago, because it's really boosted my productivity. And if you got any questions about this setup, I've got a great trailer that I pull behind it too. I can cover that in another video, but just super useful. And yeah, I hope you like taking a look at it. Well, this is what's generically called a portable power station. This particular one's made by Champion. It's really one of the best I've seen, and I've seen a number of them. It's not quite out for sale yet, or it will be soon in a larger way, but it's a brand new product. And I want to tell you about the product in general, about the category of product, but also about this unit in particular. So portable power stations are high-capacity lithium-ion batteries that are packaged together with an inverter to convert that direct current battery power into something that plug-in alternating current products can use. And it's also got a built-in charger too. So essentially, it's power in a box. And they're sometimes called portable solar generators, even though they're not actually a generator in themselves, but they all can be connected to some solar panels. So that's one of the biggest and best applications for something like this, is long-term power that does not require fuel and does not generate any noise. So if you've got an extended power failure going on and gas stations are running out of gas and you can't find anything, maybe you can't even drive on the road because of all the downed trees, well, if you have access to sunlight, then you can keep going with power. Now, to be fair, these things don't store a lot of power. One gas tank in an average size gas power generator puts out about 15 times the total power of something like this. So relatively small amount of power, but like I said, it can be recharged from a wall outlet or from a vehicle or also from a solar panel. So that's the advantage. This particular model is designed to accept expansion batteries, which just kind of sit on top. There's a cable that connects the two together at the back. So in this case, I would have doubled the capacity, because the total capacity is about 1,600 watt hours, so 1.6 kilowatt hours. And we get the same amount again with the expansion battery. In this particular design, you can add up to 10 expansion batteries if you want. So if you had all those batteries, you would have just about the same amount of stored power as in one tank of fuel for a gas-powered generator. So it starts to get comparable there, although 10 of these and this unit would be much more expensive than a generator. But still, the applications are slightly different, and the strengths of something like this are quite different than a fuel-powered generator. Let's just take a close look here for a minute. So we switch on the unit here. Kind of boots up. And right now it tells me there's 100% charge. The battery is not being charged. Now if I want AC power, like out of this outlet here, for anything that would plug into a normal outlet, I need to press the button again, and then I get that little outlet symbol, and stuff works. Now you can see here, it even tells me the wattage and the voltage that's being delivered. So it's a 100-watt bulb. I can operate this bulb for just under 10 hours. It's taking 118 watts. It's delivering 121.1 volts and drawing 0.9 amps. So if I had this hooked up to a wall outlet or to a solar panel, then there would be an indication that the battery is being charged, and it would tell me how much longer it needs to charge fully. So 3 120-volt outlets. There's a Paralink connection here which would allow this to connect to an inverter generator, which is a handy thing. I mean, imagine you're at an RV campsite, for instance. You don't want to turn your generator on every time you want to have some lights or something like that. So small applications can be powered directly by the battery. When the battery drops to a certain level of charge, the connected inverter generator can be connected to this and charge it up again. So it's just a better way to manage power, and it means you don't necessarily have to have your generator running all the time. Now over here, we've got a 12-volt 10-amp outlet for regular accessory port. Here's another way of getting 12 volts out. And then there's USB and USB-C for charging phones and computers and stuff like that. So a pretty impressive technology. I've never seen a unit that's quite this full-featured in terms of outlets, capacity, and expansion capabilities. But you'll be seeing lots more of this kind of stuff in the future. I think this is the way of the future, at least for this kind of backup power. Advantages over a regular generator certainly do exist, and you can use it alongside of a regular generator, or if you've got to power something small a long way from anywhere, well, this is the kind of unit that can work well for you. Let me show you this tool I've been using for a number of years. I can't remember how long, ever since they came out. This is a Milwaukee PVC shear, it's called. And the purpose of this is to cut all kinds of plastic pipe, which it does quite easily. I mean, that's really fast. When you're installing conduit or water pipe or whatever, it works great. PEX pipe, any kind of plastic water pipe works great. It will even cut smaller ABS, which is quite something because it's really strong material. But what I actually use this most for is pruning trees and branches and things. It's fast and easy, and I'll just show you what I mean. The tool's offset, so I'm going to go around here, get as close as I can to the trunk, and then I've been meaning to prune off these branches anyway, so. So you might be wondering how big this thing can handle. I think it'll probably go through that, but let's see. Sometimes it stalls out on big stuff. This is just pine, so let's see if it'll do it. Yeah, just like that. Now, it's cordless, 12 volt. It lasts a long time, especially with these extended batteries. And the blade's replaceable too. I've already had to replace the blade once. It got bent and chipped and everything. So, but great tool for plumbing and tree pruning. Well, the first question I've got comes from Ray, and he happens to be a student in my online MIG welding course. So he's got a question about what he's learning. Hi, Steve. Do you start your weld by bringing the wire holder to the workpiece, or by advancing the wire feed to the workpiece? It looks to me like the holder is stationary and you advance the wire feed to make initial contact with the metal. Yeah, Ray's right. I should give you a little background though. A MIG welder is an electric welder that's the easiest of all to use. You can learn to use one in about 30 minutes or so. The claim to fame is that it's got an energized wire, thin wire, that comes out of the handle you hold. So you don't have to worry about feeding another welding rod into the welding zone. It does that automatically. Some MIG welders can also shield the weld area with an inert gas, which makes for a really great looking weld. I like MIG welders a lot, and that's why I built my course around that. You can learn more about the course in the description box and in the top pinned comment if you want to learn more. But Ray's is completely right. You don't get too close to the metal when you're starting a weld. You just get close enough, maybe half an inch or so. You pull the trigger, the energized wire automatically advances, and when it gets close to the metal, it creates an arc, and you start welding. So super easy to use. I don't know what I'd do without my MIG welder. So there you go, Ray. This question comes from Wally. Hi Steve, how are things? One of my retirement projects is our cottage. We pretty much gutted it 2 years ago and have been slowly rebuilding since. We're finally getting around to the siding, combination of vertical board and batten and shakes, all vinyl. My question is about Tyvek. When we resheathed the outside of the cottage 2 years ago with 1/2-inch plywood, we covered it with Tyvek, which is a kind of building wrap. I'm a bit concerned with having the Tyvek exposed to the elements for this long. My question is, should I replace the Tyvek before residing, or am I safe to reside over it? Well, technically speaking, the Tyvek is a fabric, a kind of a waterproof fabric that's wrapped around the outer sheathing of buildings. It's used all the time. It just helps to stop air infiltration and drafts and things. And it does a decent job at that. But I don't like Tyvek, and I don't use any of the standard building wraps on my projects. A couple of reasons. First of all, last time I checked, companies like Tyvek say our product has got to be covered in 60 days or less, or else it's going to start deteriorating and not work properly. So, and that 60 days seems a bit conservative to me, because I've seen it up for a lot longer than that, and it seems to be fine. Another problem, though, is the way it's not breathable. It can't let moisture vapor pass through it. It's waterproof. It's kind of plasticky. And I can keep water out, but if water ever gets behind it, on the wall side of it, it can't escape. So that's another problem, and I've seen that happen. I've also seen a situation where a building wrap, conventional building wrap, was used against OSB, oriented strand board. It's a common sheathing material. And for some reason, and I don't know all the chemistry, but the building wrap was tatters. It was just hanging in ribbons. It had pretty well deteriorated. It certainly wasn't functioning properly. I've heard some people theorize that it's the glue in the OSB that doesn't react well with the building wrap. I don't know what it is, but my preference is to use a heavier, breathable building wrap. It's made by a few different companies. Cosella Dorkin is one company that makes a product that I really like. It's probably about twice as thick as regular building wrap, so it's a lot stronger. You have a hard time tearing it. But most importantly, it allows moisture vapor to pass through. So it's kind of interesting. It stops liquid water. If there's a leak, it's not going to get through. But if water gets behind it, it can dry out through this stuff. So breathability is a great thing when it comes to building wraps. This next question, actually, the same question, the same problem has come into me from two different subscribers recently. I'll read Fran's note here, but exactly the same situation is happening with Alan as well. So Fran writes, we just had our deck stained this past May with bare cedar natural tone, photos included. Now our deck looks like the bottom 3 photos. We've had thick fog, and every morning our decks have been wet. If you wet the deck, there are white spots that go away, but as soon as they dry, the spots come back. When we finally get some days of sunshine, should we put some clear deck stain on the decks? We're so disappointed, as they looked beautiful for a couple of weeks. Now this has happened. We've used the same stain for years and never had a problem previously. So Alan has the same problem. Same sort of some white blotches and also some darker areas which look pretty poor. I think two things are going on here. First of all, the dark areas. In both cases, in Fran's case and in Alan's case, the old finish was stripped and a deck brightener was added to bring up the natural bright color of the wood, and then the stain was applied. But in neither case was sanding done. And looking at the photos they've sent me, it looks very much like some of the gray from weathering, because the previous finish had failed. Some of that weathering was not completely removed or brightened with the brightener, and that area absorbs more stain, so it gets darker. I see this sort of thing all the time. And you know, there's really no substitute for sanding back to bare wood on a deck that you're refinishing. I wouldn't recommend starting that sanding process right from the get-go. It's far better to strip off all of the old finish you can get off with some sort of water-soluble deck stripper. They make non-toxic ones that won't hurt your gardens or your lawn. And then after it dries, after you've pressure washed that gunk off, let it dry, bone dry, and then sand it with an 80 grit abrasive, ideally in a 6-inch random orbit sander. That's a handheld sander, but it's pretty powerful and it can cover a lot of ground. So that's the solution, or rather the prevention for the gray streaking that these people are having trouble with. But also I've noticed that unless a deck finish is fully dry, and that can take 3 or 4 or 5 days, it can be susceptible to whitening from moisture. It's almost like it absorbs some of the moisture and it makes it look cloudy and white. Now, in my experience, if you leave things alone and let full drying occur, you know, once wet weather stops, that problem will most likely go away. At least it has in my experience. So, you know, that's the issue with decks. And as I said, fairly common problem. But sanding, that's the way around it. Now this question comes from Gail. Hello, Steve. And my husband and I enjoy your newsletters. We always read your newspaper column in the Ottawa Citizen, so thank you very much. We're interested in one of the Aqua Nui water distiller systems like you have. My husband had some questions and you might be in a good position to answer. We're outside of Smiths Falls, Ontario, and we're wondering what sort of duties, taxes, and brokerage fees we'll encounter if we go ahead with the purchase. Since the distiller is made in the U.S., maybe it's covered under a free trade agreement. Many thanks. Look forward to hearing from you. Well, yes, I own an Aqua Nui water distiller. If you've seen my other stuff before, you know that I really value drinking distilled water. There's lots of reasons for that. I think it's a health boost. I know from my own experience and my family's experience that it offers benefits, some real benefits, even if you live in a situation where you're not concerned about contamination of your water. Like where I live, there's not a factory within 100 miles, and my well is 143 feet deep in limestone. So it's pretty pure as water goes, but it also has a lot of minerals in it. And believe it or not, waterborne minerals of that kind, you know, non-organic, non-chelated minerals, can cause problems in your body. But I won't go into that now. There's lots more information about my feelings about distilled water and my experiences on my website. As far as importing one of these things goes, the best advice I can give you is to open up an account with a broker who can bring these things across the border, a customs broker. If you just, say, ship by one of the regular couriers and they handle the customs brokerage, they can and usually do soak you for very high prices and fees. I happen to have an account with an outfit called Near North Customs Broker. I'm just a little guy. I might import something, you know, once every couple of months. So I'm not a big account, but they still take really good care of me. They're very efficient. They've never made a mistake, and their fees are certainly reasonable, far more reasonable than courier companies for the actual brokerage. So that would be my recommendation to you. And as far as the company goes, I've had great results with them. They make this product right in the U.S. They're on the ball. They have excellent customer service. I've had my unit for, I can't remember exactly, maybe 3 or 4 years now. And it gets a lot of use. I mean, not only does my family drink water from it, but it automatically produces water enough that I can share it with neighbors and things. So it gets a lot of use. I did have an issue with a burned out element maybe a year or so ago. Parts were easy to order. They were reasonably priced. It was easy to fix. So all in all, I'm a happy customer, and I can certainly recommend that brand and that way of getting the product into Canada or any other country that you might live in other than the States. So there you go. Got some questions you'd like answered on the show? Email me at steve@stevemaxwell.ca, and I'll do my best to answer them, make them part of the show so you can see for yourself. Also, don't forget to enter the contest giveaway. I've got a brand new DEWALT 8-inch pruning chainsaw to give away. Entering details are in the description box and the top pinned comment down below. And if you like what you see here, consider signing up for my free Saturday morning email newsletter. It comes out each week. More than 30,000 people get it. They love it, and I think you will too. So go to baileylineroad.com. That's my website, and it's easy to sign up. In the next episode of Practical Living, I'll show you how I divide cattle pasture into smaller sections for better productivity. You'll learn about 2 unconventional ways to get inexpensive wood for fine woodworking. And I'll show you the first cordless pressure washer I've seen in action. So, see you next time.